A little more for your ears only. I'm David Alpern.
I'm Melissa Exelberth with a quote from the news. You know what you learn if you're a New Yorker? The world doesn't owe you a damn thing. That was Brooklyn-born Jewish Betty Joan Persky, who got quite a lot as the pouty-lipped, husky-voiced model-turned-actress-turned-icon Lauren Bacall, including husbands Humphrey Bogart and Jason Robards, and a fling with Sinatra. She died last week at 89. Now this.
Have you got any castles that you want me to build, baby? Have you got any dragons that you want to have killed, baby? I'll get into my 7-league boots. I'll get into my bulletproof suits. I'll get out my revolver that shoots. And rat-a-tat-a-tat, down they go.
Nancy Lamotte gives a contemporary feminist feel to that 1937 song written by Johnny Mercer and Richard Whiting for Dick Powell as male lead in the movie Varsity Show. Now, veteran journalist and author Gail Sheehy, famed for her Passages books on key phases of men's and women's lives, is doing her part to encourage distaff daring with a new memoir titled Daring, My Passages, from HarperCollins. She's also launched an interactive internet campaign for young women called The Daring Project at SheehyDaringProject.com. And to talk about both for your ears only, my friend Gail Sheehy is on the line again now. Welcome back to the program.
I love being with you.
Let's start with the memoir. What's the first episode of personal daring you detail?
Well, I talk about taking the longest walk of my career, which was from the estrogen zone of the women's department at the New York Herald Tribune, where you had to write about, cooking and fashion, down the back stairs, sneaking down the back stairs and across into the testosterone zone, the men's, where all the men worked, in the sitting room, and all the way to the door of Clay Felker, who was starting the precursor to New York Magazine. Scared to death, but I had a story to pitch, and I figured this was my big chance.
Let's talk about the Daring Project. Who is it aimed at?
It's aimed at young women because, my book is all about being in the 60s and the 70s and then all the way to the present day. But young women really don't know that history, and I want them to be excited about daring. We had a lot higher mountains to scale in the 60s and 70s, and today they have social media and computers and wonderful Wi-Fi cell phones, and they can work from home. But it's still tough. You still have to be daring to, get ahead of the crowd and make an impact. So this Sheehy Daring Project, I'm inviting young women to send in the daring moments in their early lives, and then writing stories about them on the website, and then asking accomplished women, what was the daring moment in your early career that helped you catapult your career forward?
Well, I'm interested in the young women. Talk about the blind editor you feature on the Daring Project, the website.
Well, Michelle Hackman, I thought was amazing. This was the day of the terrorist attacks on New York and Washington. Michelle Hackman woke up with her own terror. She couldn't see anything. Her retina had detached, and surgery wasn't going to be able to bring back her sight. She was only 8 years old, and her parents told her she'd have to give up gymnastics. Well, she said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let blindness stop me from doing what I love to do. So she did it. She continued doing it badly. She taught herself how to read the New York Times in Braille in middle school, and she became a very early adopter of social media. So she could really report and write and communicate with people. And she's now at Yale, the city editor of the Yale Daily News, even though she's blind. So she dares to dream dangerously. She wants to be a White House correspondent.
Another case of daring involves not so much making waves as taking them on, surfing. Tell us about that young woman.
Well, she was going to Wesleyan University. She'd always been able to get A's, very conventional life. And her best friend was killed in an auto accident with her whole family. And the best friend had been planning to go to Cape Town, South Africa to expand her consciousness. So Rachel could not go back to college. She just felt she had to go and have that experience for her friend. And her parents said, well, you better have a plan. So she said, I'm going to come out in an hour with a plan. And she came out of her room an hour later with a one-way ticket to Cape Town, South Africa, which she paid for by herself. And she decided that she would learn how to surf. So she spent 6 months trying to learn how to stand up on the darn surfboard, and she was never very good at it. But she had a fabulous experience living on her own with 6 other girls in a beach house and learning a new language and realizing that you can try something and not master it, but you wouldn't die from it. And that allowed her to change her life again when she finished college. Instead of going to work as an art historian, which she'd been trained for, she found she liked writing. So she took a writing MFA, and she's now writing her first novel.
Will you keep Project Daring in the digital realm, or will there be some real-world gatherings, a national convention perhaps, or maybe local workshops and affinity groups?
Well, I'll certainly try to spread that idea as I do the book tour, and I'm making speeches around the country all through the fall up to Thanksgiving. So I'll have a chance to excite young women to start those kinds of affinity groups and share their daring stories and buck each other up about taking chances.
Gail Sheehy is famed for her Passages series on key phases of men's and women's lives, now including a new memoir titled Daring My Passages from HarperCollins. Her interactive campaign for young women is the Daring Project at SheehyDaringProject.com.
Well, have you got any mortgages you want to have paid, baby? Have you got any villains that you want to have laid to rest? After all my adventures are through, and I bring home a dragon or two, you can tell all the papers that I did it because I love you.
And this has been For Your Ears Only.